Dude, my neighbor's dog is running around loose, and at one point while we were talking, it's a full black dog, and
You thought it was
I thought Bigfoot was standing across the street staring at me at one point. It freaked me out.
That would have made this episode so much better.
I was like, oh my God, it knows.
It's here.
Wait, I'm going to turn my camera around.
Yeah, just wait, guys, I got it. Wait.
There's one here now.
They are psychic.
Oh, that's good.
Welcome, everybody, to Hunting Illinois. This week, we're going to be addressing a topic that popped up around this time last year, where we talked about having some Bigfoot Sasquatch hunting classes. And we decided to address that because we got a big response to that last year. So we're actually going to go over the steps you would take to get into some Bigfoot hunting. So, guys, how do you guys feel about Bigfoot and Bigfoot hunting? You guys have any experience in that?
I don't have a ton of experience, but I think it's certainly an interesting topic. That's for certain.
Yeah, one time I was in the woods and I smelled something terrible. I don't know what it was, but I've heard Bigfoot smells really bad, so maybe it was him. I don't know.
Could have been, yeah. Could have been that, or it could have been Jason walking through.
That's rude.
Yeah, that was during the COVID year, so I guess it had been a while since I'd taken a shower.
Do you guys know of any other Bigfoot believers? Actually, I just thought of this just now. I do have a Bigfoot believer that's in my family. Do you guys have anyone?
I mean, I believe.
I don't.
Yeah? Adam's a believer?
It's got to be true, right?
You're all in?
I'm all in.
No, man, I'm going to light up my father-in-law right now. I don't think he minds, but he is all about it. He has property in Southern Ohio, and he swears that Bigfoot's out there. He goes to the extent of putting out trail cameras and leaving him gifts because he heard something once that he cannot describe. And I brought up every animal that makes a weird noise to him. And he just keeps on saying like, nope, I've heard that before. Nope, heard that before. Know what that sounds like. Nope, that's not it. This is something else. And he's terrified of what could be out there in a way, and to the point where he's leaving them. I mean, if you leave Bigfoot Oreos, I think he's going to eat them, you know?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. but good for him that he's actually, taking the next step to try to, solidify his belief. He's not just, stubbornly saying, oh yeah, it exists. He's putting out cameras and trying to find, new evidence. That's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. But he's all about it. And I've been down there. I mean, it's an interesting spot. I mean, it's very close to West Virginia. So it's some thick woods down there. It's not like your normal Northern Ohio or Middle Ohio. So there could be something down there. You don't know what's in there though.
You never know.
Mm-hmm.
Never know.
Oh, Ohio, right by West Virginia. That's where you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I knew somebody that lived over there that believed in crazy stuff too. He had a piece of property and he swore that there were elves that lived on it because every few days there'd be a random Oreo sitting on a stump.
Oreos aren't even made by Keebler, so that doesn't even make any sense.
You're reading way too far into it.
Yeah. What I always found fascinating about the whole thing is, obviously when we're looking at, turkey or something, there's all these different subspecies. And I always found it interesting how, in a lot of the geographic areas that people have these sightings, they claim to see a lot of similar things, but they all have, different terminologies and different names for those individuals. I remember I lived in Western Kentucky for a few years during college, and it was big there. People, thought they saw it frequently, and it was referred to as the Kentucky swamp ape because it just, again, had that strong odor to it. It loved these kind of wetland areas. So I just find that fascinating how, names kind of apply to the geographic areas, and they're kind of distinct, but a lot of times a lot of those sightings and stuff overlap significantly.
Do you guys have we can cut this out. I'm just curious. Do you guys have any local lore from where you guys grew up at about different things like that?
Not specifically local, but I think it is interesting that a lot of different Native American peoples have, traditionally some kind of story about a Sasquatch type creature, which is pretty neat. A lot of different tribes that maybe didn't, even on different sides of the country, still have something that resembles that. So it's pretty cool.
All right. So say you guys wanting to get into Bigfoot hunting. I mean, we teach people how to get into hunting and how to go hunt new species. I mean, we haven't gone out yet, but what could you guys think of using the same tactics that we would use for regular hunting to try to get into Bigfoot hunting?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think it's a really interesting thought piece too, just to kind of reflect back on things and apply some of this hunt planning strategies that we implement ourselves, but also that we try to educate others on and try to apply that to a species like that. I find that a very interesting thought piece. And obviously I won't say I'm a believer, but I'm fairly agnostic to it. I know that people see things that they can't explain when they're out there, and I'm not going to sit here and judge them for that, or say they're completely wrong because I wasn't there and didn't experience it. But if we're going back to this kind of thought experiment, I think one of the biggest things is understanding vocalizations and understanding the overall ecology of that species. Where does it spend time? What are some of its breeding behaviors? What are some of its feeding behaviors? And how does it communicate with other individuals of its species? And I find that stuff very interesting. But that, for me, that would kind of be my first step into kind of understanding how to partake in Bigfoot hunting, would be to try to address some of these ecological and behavioral traits that they possess, and how can we use that to kind of aid in our strategic processes.
Sure. I mean, it goes back to bedding, feeding, and mating, right?
Essentially. Yep.
So you're looking at where are they sleeping at, where are they eating at, where's the movement occurring, when's the movement occurring, when's the mating season going, to see when they might be a little bit more risky than other times of the year, and maybe you can lure them towards you or something like that.
Sure. I mean, speaking on that, one of the big aspects of, for lack of a better term, Bigfoot lore, a lot of it is using some of these vocalizations when you're out there, searching for them, and to try to communicate with that individual in the hopes that you're bringing it in. And obviously, we're very close to turkey season in Illinois right now, and we're basically doing the same thing with turkeys, trying to use some of these vocalizations to try to lure that individual into our location.
I think one of the more common, at least I remember being a kid and seeing there was Bigfoot was really big in the 90s. I mean, it still is. I mean, you have these Animal Planet shows and other.
He is big.
It's still big. It never went away, I guess. But is tracking. And I know Curtis tends to have a knack for tracking. I mean, Curtis, do you have any tracking tips to give people if they're out in the woods and looking for tracks, and especially seeing if there's a Bigfoot track versus maybe a person track?
Well, yeah, so I guess the Bigfoot track is supposed to be, I mean, so we are plantigrade, but Bigfoot is even more plantigrade than we are, supposedly. So they've got a super flat foot. So if you were to find a human footprint out in the wild, there should be a little curvature on the instep. That's where the arch of our foot would be. That's typical of our foot, and supposedly Sasquatch doesn't have that. He's just got a big flat foot. So I guess if you're looking for tracks that would be different from the norm, size is definitely not the only thing that you want to go to, because obviously people are highly variable. How do you know Shaquille O'Neal's not running around the woods there barefoot? I mean, that's possible. But even Shaquille O'Neal will have that curvature on the instep. So yeah, I guess look for that. Look for a very flat, big Shaquille O'Neal footprint out in the woods. I mean, one thing that we haven't mentioned yet is home range size. This is important when you're talking about like scouting for different critters, how you're going to go about hunting them. We need to know that, because for a critter like a bobwhite quail, for example, very small home range size. We need to find a property that has water, has woody cover, has grassy cover, has open areas where they can go get insects, all in a very small area, like 40 acres. But for deer, obviously, they are much more open in the habitat types that they can live in. So that opens up a lot more places that we can look for deer. And I think if there was a creature like the Sasquatch running around out there, it would have to have an incredibly large home range size and possibly be very migratory and utilize different parts of the country at different times of year. So I think as far as when it comes to timing, it's obviously the right place at the right time, dealing with what is probably a very, very sparse population of an apex predator over a very large landmass, and basically has that entire landmass to roam. So,
and certainly, when you're out there scouting, we're not just looking for tracks as well. There will be other types of sign that you may be able to find. One big aspect of Bigfoot lore is that they constantly, will either pick trees up and start, knocking on other trees. Maybe you'll see evidence of that, especially near some fresh tracks, similar to deer tracks with a rub line. When you find multiple types of sign that indicate that specific species is there, that kind of lets you know you're in what Curtis kind of termed their home range. And so you don't have to just focus on looking for tracks. Also, scat is out there. Lots of other sign that you can probably stumble across.
And if you're stumbling across sign, you really want to watch your step, because you do not want to step in a Bigfoot scat.
You may not even want to follow that trail for too long, to be frank.
Well, not near the mating season. No.
Yeah.
Do you think they have a mating season, or do you think I don't even know what apes mating is like? I don't know, because I mean humans are not apes, but I mean we are like a year-round monthly mater.
We're apes. We just have unlimited resources. So I mean, breeding ecology is always tied to resource availability. So I gotta believe that the Sasquatch breeding is centered around when woodchucks come out of their holes.
What?
That's a great food source. Think about it. If you're a big hairy ape running around, what better food than a little woodchuck? It's not too dangerous for you, so you can just kind of pounce on it and kill it pretty easily without it biting you or anything like that. They're easy to find. There's a bunch of them. Nobody notices if a bunch of them are missing. So yeah, I think Sasquatch breeding all boils down to woodchucks.
I was going to say Valentine's Day, so I'll stick with your response there. I like that.
Could be for the romantics amongst them.
Yeah. But what I actually did find interesting is I was kind of just Googling around here, and I actually found this kind of meta-analysis that they looked at a bunch of different sightings across the country and basically just kind of geospatialized and did some basic analysis on it. And what they found is more than half of sightings were very close to very densely populated areas, and I found that pretty intriguing. Because historically, when you think of Bigfoot sightings, you think of these large tracts of lands that may have just been undisturbed, or they're natural just areas that are untouched and inaccessible to most humans. But it seems like a lot of the sightings are geared in these urban development areas, and I find that pretty interesting.
So sightings are more highly correlated with the density of human population than they are with suitable Sasquatch. Wonder what that says about
some correlation there. Yeah, but it also you look at species like deer and pigeon, and there's a lot of species that really thrive in some of these man-made environments. I'm not saying Bigfoot or Sasquatch is certainly one of those species, but it's interesting to think about, because there are a lot of species that do well in some of these man-made environments. Well, that kind of concludes our episode today. We touched on a few interesting things, and I think the overall thought experiment of looking at some of these species, and even some of these non-huntable species or non-game species, and think about their ecology, think about their behavior, their breeding patterns, their feeding behavior, and really having a fundamental understanding of the specific animal that you're targeting is very important. And I personally know a lot of wildlife photographers who are some of the best ecologists I've ever met, and a lot of that is just these observations and this thought process of thinking very critically about why that specific animal is where it's at right now. And once you start to understand that, you can put a lot of these pieces together and start to be able to predict some of those things, and maybe say well, the weather, for a simple example, well, the weather's similar today, we're in a similar time of year, maybe the prothonotary warblers will start showing up around the same time. And so once you start to develop these patterns in some of these species, I think it's a really good thought experiment to just build that critical thinking skills, and then apply that to some of your outdoor planning processes, whether it's hunting, photography, birding. I think it's a really good thought experiment.
And thinking about this cryptozoology topic, it also gets me thinking just how important of a tool it is to have hunters out there basically constantly out in the woods, seeing what's going on, having trail cameras. Basically, they've got their fingers on the pulse of the health of the environment and can almost act as a sentinel if things happen that are out of the usual, like a mountain lion gets caught on a trail camera. a lot of times they'll send those pictures to the IDNR so they can document that record. And it's just vitally important to have that, because without hunters putting those cameras out, scouting, being in the woods every day, there's a lot of stuff that goes on out there that we wouldn't know about.
Yeah, well said, guys. All right, well, we'll see you guys next episode. Thanks a lot.